Well, China marking a new chapter of joint development with the Arab world. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud says that the China-Arab States Summit and the China Gulf Cooperation Council reached a series of pioneering initiatives to promote a high-quality development and a win-win for cooperation. The first two summits of their kind were held on Friday with Chinese President Xi Jinping and more than 10 other Arab leaders in attendance. Arab countries and GCC countries will also continue to cooperate with China in the political, economic, and educational fields. Let's take a listen.
We stressed the need to strengthen the political and economic relations between the Gulf states and China and adopted a 2023 to 2027 action plan for strategic dialogue. Our discussions also involved the early conclusion of negotiations on the China-GCC free trade area. At the summit, we also mentioned the support of building a China-Arab community with a shared future in the new era and will promote continued cooperation between Arab states and China through China-Arab Cooperation Forum.
Let's bring in I-24 News Senior International Affairs Correspondent Owen Alterman joining us live in studio. Owen, China and Saudi Arabia releasing a nearly 4,000-word statement aligning on a lot of political issues and other things like space research, digital economy, infrastructure, Iran's nuclear program, Yemen, Russia's war in Ukraine. Talk to us about some of these policies and what they mean for the rest of the world.
Yeah, we in Israel, Hamda, should be much more interested in this document than we have been. This is a really important document for Israel to look at. If this even half expresses what China's policy is toward the Middle East, including on issues that are of central importance to Israel, this is really important to us and in many cases good news. We're going to start with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because this to me is where the real news is. Here's the language used by the declaration, right? The two sides discussed the developments in the Palestinian cause, blah, blah, blah. Here's what they agreed is important. Listen carefully to the language. Find a real horizon for resuming serious and effective negotiations in order to achieve peace. Find a real horizon for resuming serious and effective negotiations to achieve peace. That's the Saudi ask here on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Not a resolution. It does mention the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, as Saudi documents always do, right? This is their baby. This is the baby that they birthed, again, at such a sensitive time in Israel, at the depths of the Second Intifada, but is still a landmark in terms of Israeli-Palestinian peacemaking and Israel's role in the Arab world and Israel's relations with the Arab world. But again, they don't go there in this document. What they talk about is finding a horizon to resume negotiations to achieve peace. And yes, the end goal of peace is the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative with a Palestinian state in all of the West Bank up to the 1967 borders without land swaps. That language is not here, but that seems to be the Saudi ask. And again, there are people reading this document as a document that favors the Palestinians, that shows China saying that the Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian cause is a priority. I read it differently. This is a very modest ask by the Saudis, and for that matter, by the Chinese. And if that's where the Saudis are setting the bar, potentially even for normalization, excellent news from Israel's perspective. Other issues, the Iranian nuclear deal doesn't come out against the deal. Again, a bit of a disappointment, I think, in Israel's case. But again, I don't think that it was a reasonable expectation in a document like this, but does talk about the need for Iran to cooperate with the IAEA and to continue to embrace the non-proliferation regime. Again, really setting Chinese red lines on Iran in a way I think is important. On Lebanon, talking about the importance of stopping the country from being an incubator for terrorist organizations and a base for terrorist acts. Again, Saudi Arabia, certainly the Arab League, considers Hezbollah a terrorist organization. Hezbollah is not mentioned in the document. It's a bit of a Voldemort in the paragraph on Lebanon. It's not mentioned there, but certainly this is, I think, a win for the Saudis in some degree because the Chinese well know what the Saudis mean when they use the word terrorist organization in the Lebanese context. And that's just the beginning of it. There are also paragraphs on Syria, Iraq, and further afield as well, as you mentioned, Yemen. But again, from Israel's perspective, some really important statements about what China's policy are. There's also this issue of these three islands that are in dispute in the Arabian Gulf and the Persian Gulf between Iran and the UAE. The document clearly takes the Emirati side. The Iranians not happy about this, summoning the Chinese ambassador in Tehran for a reprimand. So that's being focused on by Iran. That issue, of course, of lesser importance to Israel than these other core issues. But if this is a sign that China is coming much closer to the Saudi positions on key issues in the Middle East than it does to the Iranian issues, to the Iranian positions, very, very important news here in Israel, and I think a very, very important document for us to be paying attention to.
And very quickly, Owen, the two countries say they also have big plans for security as well as oil, agreeing to cooperate peacefully on nuclear energy and work together to develop other modern technologies. What does this mean for the United States, a country that is now seeing a rift with countries like Saudi Arabia and China?
This is dramatic news for Washington. And it's been covered that way in the U.S. media, Hamda. Look, the Saudis are trying to balance between the U.S. and China, trying to negotiate the best deal they can by playing one against the other. By the way, the normalization with Israel is part of this, right? We broke the story last week about the meetings held by the Saudi foreign minister in New York and by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh with Israel-adjacent actors. The Saudis trying to negotiate the best deal they can with the U.S. and China and trying to draft pro-Israel activists and advocates in order to get that better deal with the U.S., but always using this relationship with China as leverage. And this visit was a big, big part of that plan.
I-24 News senior international affairs correspondent Owen Alterman live with us in studio this morning. Thank you.